Saudi Arabia has announced it is freezing all new trade and investment with this country. In a dramatic move, the Canadian ambassador is being expelled, and his deadline to leave is now just hours away. The rift centers around human rights and comments made online in recent days. Canada voiced concerns both through the Foreign Affairs Minister and a government Twitter account. It called out the arrests of civil and women's rights activists in Saudi Arabia, and it specifically asked for the immediate release of Raif and Samar Badawi, two civil rights activists with a Canadian connection. Saudi Arabia was quick to fire back. In a thread of statements, it called Canada's comments reprehensible and unacceptable. In this tweet here, it also called Ottawa's position an attack on the kingdom. Well, the United Arab Emirates has announced this morning it is standing with Saudi Arabia, and Canada, too, is finding support. Amnesty International released a statement last hour on the Canadian ambassador's expulsion from the kingdom. It says the international community must push Saudi Arabian authorities to end this draconian crackdown and targeted repression of human rights defenders in this country. The statement goes on to denounce Saudi Arabia's decision to lash out in the face of criticism and calls out countries with influence over Saudi Arabia, including the United States, the UK, and France, saying they have stayed silent for too long. The fallout has gone even beyond trade and diplomatic relations, though. Saudi state TV says it is suspending all educational exchange programs with Canada and also moving Saudi scholarship recipients to other countries. While the details are still unclear, that could mean the educational future of thousands of Saudi students in Canada is now up in the air. Well, all of this controversy centers around one Saudi family, the Badawis. They are activists who have captured the attention of their government and the world. Arthi Pole is here with more on this family. So, Arthi, who exactly are the Badawis and how do they fit into this?
Well, you saw there in that tweet from the Foreign Affairs Minister, Chrystia Freeland, that there were two specific people that were being called for the release of, and that was Samar Badawi and Raif Badawi. Let's start with Samar Badawi, as it was her arrest that really prompted that tweet and then these tensions we're seeing between these two countries. Well, you can see there that she is a women's and human rights activist. She was receiving here in 2012 an award from Michelle Obama, presented by Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton. And this is an International Women of Courage Award. And that was in part for her work campaigning for Saudi's right to vote. And this was several years ago. She's also been a vocal advocate for lifting the ban on female drivers in the kingdom. And as we know, that ban was changed just several months ago. But it was her arrest just a few days ago, confirmed by Amnesty International, that again has led to these tensions. A little bit more about Samar. She certainly has been a target by Saudi authorities before. She has been subject to a travel ban, and that was back in 2014. 2 years following that, she was also arrested before, and of course we know she is arrested right now too. And she was also trying to campaign against the guardianship system, requiring women to get permission from a male relative on all major decisions. Rashmi.
Okay, we know the Canadian government's been calling for the release of her brother Raif. What more do we know about him?
Right. So the Canadian government is calling for the release of both of these two individuals. And Raif Badawi, in fact, had been arrested, and he's been in a Saudi prison since 2012. Now, he is an internationally renowned blogger and activist. And again, he has been detained since 2012, so has been several years. He was charged with insulting Islam, so sentenced reportedly to 10 years and also to 1,000 lashes, 50 of which he received back in 2015. Now, part of the reason, too, why we saw Minister Freeland mention Raif Badawi is his wife, who you see there. She is Canadian, and Saf Haidar, and she has been pressing the government to urge Saudi Arabia for his release. CBC News spoke with her yesterday following the news of Samar's arrest, and here's what she had to say.
It's been 6 years I've been waiting. It's been 6 years my children have been waiting. For me, the wait is constant. I would very much like Canada not to give up and to remain focused on Raif's situation. I've been talking to Canada for 6 years. Until now, I'm waiting.
Again, that was the wife of Raif Badawi, and she actually lives in Quebec's eastern townships.
Here to help break down all of this is Besma Momani. She is a senior fellow with the Center for International Governance, Innovation and Political Science at the University of Waterloo. And she joins us now from Ontario's Muskoka region. Besma, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. And you mentioned online over Twitter, which is how this all unfolded, but you mentioned on Twitter that you weren't surprised by Saudi Arabia's decision. Why was that?
I wasn't, partly because I've been watching Saudi foreign policy, and this is just in line with, the Crown Prince who is really behind this, Mohammed bin Salman's brash moves, everything from starting an enormous diplomatic row with the Qataris to taking the Lebanese prime minister hostage to arresting 200 of his own, political and economic elite. I mean, this is just in keeping with brash moves that, frankly, are not always very rational and right for the juggernaut. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's really quite remarkable.
What is the rationale behind suspending all educational exchange programs with Canada? That's like about 15,000 Saudi students whose futures are up in the air now.
It is, and it's really, really devastating. I mean, remember, this is August. This is not going to be done easily. Look, economically, these are very important students. They bring a lot of wealth to the Canadian economy. Obviously, they're placed in some of our smaller universities even, which bring a lot of economic benefits to a lot of communities. I mean, it's not insignificant for Canada. Saudi students are one of the largest foreign students here. And again, international fees are quite high. Great economic resources for a lot of smaller towns and cities. Again, it's going to be painful for us. But, more importantly, it's about these students. It's August. Classes are about to start soon. Saying that they're going to find them placements, which is what they're announcing on Saudi media, is, does not seem plausible. As a professor, I can tell you it's late in the game. And so I think it's really devastating for those students.
Is there any precedent for any of this?
Frankly, no. I mean, this is just something quite remarkable. I don't think that we should be surprised by the Saudi moves, understanding Saudi foreign policy and particularly the Crown Prince. But I do think, again, it's quite painful for a lot of people.
And, Canadians might be waking up today not understanding why Saudi Arabia is picking a fight with Canada. What should the Canadian government do in response to this?
Well, I think having a level head about this is really important, and taking our time not to really, I think, react too rashly to this. This is something we have to get used to. But I think it's, it's something that we need to think about. We should be standing with our values, of course, that human rights activists do have a right to peacefully protest, and that, taking political vengeance on political activists and human rights activists is just wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. So I do hope we stand by our initial position and just frankly weather the storm.